Good morning. I'm Senator Mimi Walters, and I'm chair of the Ethics Committee. Our reforms will end backroom deals and midnight votes and bring transparency and accountability to the legislature. Specifically, we propose public review of bills before they are voted on. The taxpayers pay the bills, and they should have the right to know and ample time to review the bills before they're voted on. 24-hour internet disclosure of donations while the legislature is in session. The public has a right to know who's writing checks to the legislators who are voting on bills. Sunshine laws to end secret meetings and backroom deals. We need to bring the legislative process out to the open and end the secrecy. And finally, legislative session limits to limit the number of days legislators are in Sacramento. If legislators spent more time in their districts talking to constituents and less time in Sacramento talking to special interests, yesterday's election would not have been necessary, and these reforms would already be in place today. Thank you, and I will now turn it over to Senator Bob Huff.
Hello, I'm Senator Bob Huff. Business as usual got us where we are. Business as usual doesn't work. Business as usual must be changed. That's why part of our reform will be a group of bills we call the Budget Accountability and Performance Act. A package of reforms will bring accountability and performance standards to state government. A key component of that is performance-based budgeting. Have you wondered why state government always says they're cutting, but their budgets continue to grow? Automatic spending formulas drive our budget process. A cut in expected new money becomes a rallying cry as they cut in the department's budget. State government rewards inefficiency by writing bigger checks each year without demanding results. Performance-based budgeting is results-driven. It's not business-as-usual driven. Performance-based budgeting requires defining core goals, defining paths to achieve those goals, and ways to measure if or how well those goals have been achieved. Performance becomes the end result, not just more money for a department. Let me be clear, this is not a partisan issue. In fact, I'm merging my own performance-based budget with the Democrat colleagues to craft a stronger, better, bipartisan reform. I call on the legislature and the governor to help us implement this real important reform. Also, part of our package and key to sustainable state programs is a bill to limit annual state spending to population growth and inflation. For the past 10 years, our spending has outpaced our growth in population and inflation by about 2% per year. This can't be sustained. The policy must be changed. Lastly, our package will require bills that increase spending to identify their source of funds. As common sense as that may be, it's not in place. The people have spoken. We hear you. Now we must reform. Next, I'd like to introduce Senator Mark Wyland.
I'd like to talk a little bit about education in this state. We rank consistently, and this drop has continued over time, in lower and lower and lower among states in terms of our performance. We have 6 million students from kindergarten to 12th grade. That number is greater than the entire population of 35 states. Almost half of what we spend goes to education. We need to improve it. We need to make sure that at least 70% of the money that we spend on education goes to the classroom where students are learning and teachers are teaching. We need to make sure that local districts have greater control. We need to make sure that Sacramento is not micromanaging every aspect of education. We need to make sure that we empower parents when schools are failing, that they can choose other public schools in which to put their students. And in order to make this work, this legislature needs to concentrate on budgeting, on analyzing programs, and not just a bill factory where we look at 2,000 plus bills. We need, in order to make these reforms work, focus on the real job, which is how we spend our money, how we can best improve the money we spend, and education is number one because that's where half of our money is spent. Now I'd like to introduce Senator Jeff Denham.
Thank you. Well, we need to reduce our overhead in this state and bring accountability back to California. By limiting our bureaucracy, we need to first start by eliminating departments that we no longer need, like the Integrated Waste Management Board and many others that have been proposed by Republicans, by the Ledge Analyst's Office, by the Little Hoover Commission, by the governor. A lot of these departments, it's time for them to go. We also need to prove the worth of the departments, not only their existence, but the number of employees that they have, as well as the high salaries that they continue to push. Does the UC President's Office need 1,000 employees, or can he do it with 500? Do we need to have presidents and chancellors that are making $400,000 plus per year, or can they do it with $250,000 a year? These are a lot of the reforms that we need. As well, we're going to need to evaluate all of the properties that we own as a state. Can we sell off things like San Quentin? Sell it off this year, lease it back as we build new prisons in this state. Can we sell off the Cow Palace, which already has interested buyers? And it may take us a couple years to sell off the LA Coliseum and Sports Arena, but we're guaranteed right now the deficits are still coming in future years. And lastly, we need to address the looming pension crisis before it's one more thing that creates another fiscal meltdown. Now I'd like to introduce Bob Dutton.
Good morning. In order for California to be able to continue to provide a high level of service to the people of California, we're going to have to do something about the employment of our people. Therefore, we'll be working on the Job Creation and Retention Act. Forbes magazine in 2008 actually had California listed as the worst place to do business. As a matter of fact, even former Assembly Speaker Robert Hertzberg decided to move his business to Cardiff, Wales, instead of remaining in Watts, Los Angeles, in the Los Angeles area. Because of what he said, and I quote, with all the money and time it took us to go through the regulatory maze, we were basically chased out of the country. The Jobs and Retention Act will end California's anti-business culture, restore the state's competitive edge, eliminate the red tape that is holding us back. The best kind of social program we can provide anybody is going to be a good paying job. And in order for us to generate the revenue necessary to provide a high level of service and great programs for the people of California, we have got to get the private sector moving again. The quicker we do that, the quicker we can get out of this recession, the quicker the country will also recover. Thank you.